What's going on, y'all? I hope you're having a good day, and I hope you're having a good week as always. Excuse me. I'm here to talk about 3 stories today, but the first one's going to be long-winded, and it's going to be very honest. I want to share with everybody why I left the progressive left. So I know I have a lot of supporters that are right-wing. I have a lot of progressive and left-leaning supporters as well. I really want to walk you through every reason that I don't see eye to eye with the progressive left on their policies, because I did support Bernie Sanders for a while. I want to explain why, and I want to go step by step through all of the progressive left policies, from minimum wage to healthcare to taxes to education to everything that they're climate change. And I want to go and explain exactly why I don't support it, because I see, especially among young people, there's a lot of progressive democratic socialists coming out there, and I want to tell you my story of growing up left-leaning, caring about the environment, learning about healthcare and taxes as I got older and started having to pay them, and really let you know like what I don't agree with. And it's a discussion that I feel like especially the left needs to listen to and consider, because it tends to be an echo chamber on the right, tends to be an echo chamber on the left. But I have a lot of very interesting concerns with the progressive left coming from that echo chamber, and I haven't really heard anybody address these properly. It's just a continuous loop of the policies, and I just really want to get a discussion flowing. So that's the first story. It's going to be big. Why I left the progressive left, explain exactly why, and go policy by policy. The second story of the day is France. Macron decided to roll back on the carbon gas tax. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what the news really isn't telling you and what the future of France, Europe, and the rest of the world holds. Third story of the day is Instagram is censoring me. For whatever reason, when I post now on Instagram, they say it's unsafe for community guidelines, and they're stopping people from interacting and liking my posts because I feel like it's not safe. And we're going to talk about that. We'll also talk about Tim Cook. The CEO of Apple is now saying it's a sin to not censor people. So he's so far down his own rabbit hole, he's telling all the tech companies to go further than they're already going. This is 1984. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or you're on the right. If you speak any truth to power that doesn't agree with them, you'll probably get censored if you haven't already. It's happened to many people on the left and the right. So we're going to talk about censorship. We'll talk about France, talk about progressive left. Thank you guys for joining. I'm going to wait about a minute or 2 minutes for everyone to get in the live stream. Cheryl from Sarasota, I see you. We do shout outs here, so if you come in early, you get blessed with the shout out. Terry Ann from Chicago, I appreciate it. Thank you for blessing me with your presence. I appreciate everyone. Asun said, did you swing to the right? We're going to talk about it in a second. Amber from Cali, hello, hon. I see you. Athena from Florida, thank you. Did you see the yellow vest guy get taken out by snipers? I did not, but I did share a video of snipers on the roof, so I knew they had snipers. I didn't know that they actually took someone out. I will look into that. Thelma from Michigan, thank you. God bless Michigan. Kara from St. Louis, I appreciate you. Honey Hit Robinson. Jared Fisk, I see y'all. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you, Coralie. I appreciate you. You know, just doing my job. Jessica, thank you. Kirsten from Washington, D.C., from the home, the belly of the beast, the United States on United States. Oh, Gina from Minnesota. Ah, I see what you did there. Minnesota, I like that. I like a good pun. Gerald, I feel you, brother. We're gonna get into it. Wait about 30 more seconds for everyone to come in. Robert, I hear you, left coast. Some say the left coast is the best coast, but I've been from the right. I'm on the left. Josh from Florida. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you. I'm gonna put this on YouTube as well when it's done, so anybody check the YouTube clip and share it. I know a lot of people say that their kids are very like progressive, Bernie Sanders leaning. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she does a really amazing job on Instagram. Like, she's really good at social media. And, you know, I think I like her as a person, but the policies, you know, I just want to have a discussion, because I understand why a lot of the kids and even older people are leaning progressive left. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with having ideas and beliefs, but I really want to get into it and have a real discussion about this, because it's, you know, a lot of people accuse me of a lot of things. I'm not sold out. I'm not working for anybody. So we're going to have that discussion. Thank you. All right, let's start it up. So my whole life, first I want to show this to let people know I did support Bernie Sanders. I, you know, made a song about him. I campaigned for a year or two to really try to support the guy because I thought he was a revolutionary. I come from a background where I didn't trust the two-party system. I always cared about the environment and social justice. I knew that George Bush, Obama, something was up there. I knew the two-party system was a lie. So the reason that I supported Bernie Sanders and I was in the progressive echo chamber for a while was because I thought Bernie was the guy to take down the two-party system. Turns out he kind of flopped. I think personally he got cheated. He didn't do that much to fight it. He endorsed Hillary Clinton. Trump won, and Trump kind of turned into the person that I thought Bernie Sanders was. I never, just to be honest, when I was younger, I liked Obama because I saw him smoking a joint and I thought it was like relatable. You know, I was like, oh, Obama's cool. And I'm not saying that I was dumb or anything. I just didn't care about politics. Even during the Bernie Sanders era, a lot of people liked him for his policies, for the minimum wage, for the climate change and stuff. I liked him for his social justice. I liked him for his consistency in history. But to be honest, I never really liked Bernie Sanders for his policies. I liked him because he was anti-mainstream media, or at least his movement seemed to be. He was taking on the two-party establishment system. He was anti-war from what I saw. That's the reason that I liked Bernie Sanders. But now that I've kind of explored both sides and I speak, you know, what I feel to be right, I've noticed that the progressive left does a lot of things that I don't really, I don't want to say appreciate, I don't really care, but I want to go side by side through every single progressive policy and explain why I really don't agree with it and why I like Trump more than the progressive left. So if you're a progressive left or you know someone, share this video with them and just get them to at least consider what I'm saying and think for themselves. That's all I want you to do. I don't want Bernie or Trump or the right wing or the left wing propaganda to think for you, and people tend to do that. They follow leaders. Think for yourself. That's what I do, and I've come to these conclusions. So I'm going to start with the $15 an hour minimum wage. So it sounds really good. Obviously, I don't want anyone to make low wages. That sounds terrible. I would love to raise everyone's wage and make sure that everyone had a living wage. I agree with the talking point of Bernie, like, yes, people deserve living wages. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, yes. But here's my thing. Take out any thoughts you have of articles you read. Like, just use your common sense. Just use the brain that God gave you. That's all we have at the end of the day, common sense. So $15 an hour minimum wage. If a city instills $15 an hour minimum wage, who do you think is going to be able to afford that? Subway, Walmart, all these things that Bernie Sanders talks against, rightfully so, they're going to be able to afford $15 an hour minimum wage because they have billions of dollars in profit, so it's easy for them. Of course, they want to save more money for the CEO, but they can afford that. Think about who can't afford $15 an hour minimum wages. Do you think a mom and pop shop that, you know, has a few employees that they pay $9 an hour and barely scrapes by with high taxes, do you think they're going to be able to afford $15 hour minimum wage? No, of course not. Do you think a family-owned restaurant's going to be able to afford $15 minimum hour wages? You know, I've worked as a dishwasher before, making like $8, $10 an hour. They pay me that because they're a family-owned restaurant. They don't have $15 an hour to pay every single bartender, every single waitress, and every single dishwasher. Family-owned businesses, mom and pop shops, and small businesses that have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 10 employees, they can't afford $15 an hour minimum wage. So the talking point with Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is we're going to raise the wages and that's going to make everything equal. It's a communist, socialist, democratic socialist, left-leaning ideology. The way to even everything out is to, you know, forcefully raise things, take money from here, make you pay this money, and it's all going to level out. It sounds amazing in theory, but when I use my brain and I don't listen to people on the left and the right, even when I supported Bernie Sanders, I always thought, well, Walmart can afford $15 an hour. You know, McDonald's can afford $15 an hour. Subway can afford $15 an hour. Big business, Amazon can afford $15 an hour. I'm not saying they're using it, but they could afford that. My business can't afford $15 an hour. So in California, it's more left-leaning. I wouldn't say it's fully socialist, but it's creeping in that direction. It's impossible to start a small business. Their words sound good. They act like they love the poor and the homeless, but you have more homeless people in San Francisco and Los Angeles than any other city. Education is very low. It's near the bottom. Poverty is at the bottom. Small businesses leaving to China is at the top. So they're losing in every category of love and compassion for the lower middle class because the $15 an hour minimum wage, the whole ideology and theory, it doesn't work. It empowers big business and it cuts the legs out of small businesses and starting businesses. This is why before Julian Assange got kicked off of Twitter, he had a tweet that said, in Sweden, Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they say, Sweden, look how good democratic socialism's working. They have our health care, you know, they're more socialist than capitalist. It's a fusion. But what they didn't tell you is what Julian Assange tried to tell you before he got kicked off Twitter, which is the elites, the oligarchs in Sweden own a bigger percent of the GDP than anywhere else in Europe. So wherever democratic socialism goes, it cuts the legs out of the middle class and the lower class and anybody trying to raise, and it actually empowers the top. The theory says it's going to even it out, but it never does. This is how bad regimes get started, because you're taxing middle class and lower class people, you're raising mandatory taxes, you're making it harder to start a business, and the people with a lot of money, they can afford that. That's chump change to them. $10 more an hour, $5 more an hour. So it actually, it's not working in Sweden, combined with other things I could talk about, like their immigration refugee policy and the fact that they have one of the worst press in Europe. Anywhere that ideology goes, authoritarianism usually creeps behind, because it's harder to start from here and make something, but the people at the top then can cut the legs out. Like I said, in Sweden, the oligarchs own most of the GDP, more than anywhere else in Europe, and the press is one of the worst presses. So $15 an hour minimum wage, in progressive theory, it sounds great. Everyone's going to get paid more. But not only does it crush small businesses, mom and pop shops, and people trying to start small businesses, I mean, just use your brain. Don't listen to what Bernie says or what the right wing says. Just think. Big companies can afford that. Small companies literally can't afford that. They will have to go out of business. I don't care what 1 or 2 years worth of studies. Let's do a 50-year study of how long it works. It's a short-term strategy. It's a long-term flop. And also, a company, I mean, it's just starting to happen, but computerization and using machines instead of people, it's going to happen one way or another. That's a fast track to it happening. If people don't want to use those wages, they don't have to employ people. Just a thought, you know, you could consider and think what you want, but $15 an hour minimum wage, it's a big progressive talking point. Sorry, I gotta breathe. I don't agree with it. I'm gonna move on to healthcare, because I came from a place where I was like, yes, you know, I agree with Bernie Sanders. Everybody deserves healthcare. You know, I want everyone to get their health taken care of. I don't think it's fair that there's millions of people who don't have healthcare and can't afford healthcare. It sounds really good. You know what I'm saying? It sounds amazing. I've fallen for it. I've listened to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But here's the thing that they're not telling you. I'm 29 now, so I've had 3 years, 4 years of paying taxes and paying healthcare, and I've learned the system. I'll tell you the difference between Bernie Sanders' healthcare, Trump's healthcare, and Obama's healthcare that they're not telling you. In Trump's healthcare, he got rid of something called the individual mandate, which means you're not forced into a plan. So now, next year or the end of this year, in Trump's healthcare plan, if I don't want to pay for healthcare, I don't have to. I don't have to buy a plan. I'm not forced into a plan. I get to choose a plan. And if I don't choose a plan, I don't get penalized. Under Obamacare, you had to pick a plan. If you didn't pick one of the plans, they taxed you at the end of the year more than the plan. So what Obamacare told you, outside of all the pretty words for me and millions of people and working class people and your parents maybe and people that you can't figure out why they don't like Bernie Sanders, it's because under Obamacare, either I paid $6,000, $5,000 and handed it to the federal government for a plan that I couldn't use. That's what Obamacare was. It has saved me $0, literally. They just took my money. And if I didn't pay, I'd have to pay more. I'd have to pay a percentage of my whole income. So it's a theft. It's literally legalized government theft, where they say either we take $5,000 or $6,000. You choose. And to your parents, if you're older, maybe some of my people are in their 30s or 40s or 50s, it's even more expensive. Instead of $20,000, $30,000, you're talking about, I mean, my family, you know, lost tens of thousands of dollars to Obamacare because there's no way to opt out of it. And all of the rates were going up and up and up, because when you don't have competition and you have a monopoly on the system, which is what Bernie wants to do even further, he wants a singular government-controlled health system. So his words and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's words say, everyone gets health care. It's going to be great. Everyone gets it. It's going to be cheaper for you. It's going to be cheaper for them. Like, it's going to be a better system, and everyone gets access to it. It sounds amazing. Like, it really does. If I was 21 or 22 or 19 and I was fed up with the system like I am now, I would be like, yeah, everyone does. I mean, the Republicans are corrupt. The rich people, the right-wingers, they only care about themselves. It sounds great, but in reality, what Bernie Sanders is really doing is, first of all, it's not universal. It's not coming from the universe. It's not free. If he ever says it's free, it's being funded by your taxpayer dollars, by my taxpayer dollars. They're stealing my money and giving me a plan that I don't actually want. It's the opposite of freedom. Freedom is Trump's tax plan. If I choose a tax plan, if I choose a healthcare plan, I get the healthcare that I choose. If I don't choose a healthcare plan, I don't owe anything. It's my freedom to buy or not to buy. Bernie Sanders is financial enslavement. Obama's is financial enslavement. There's nothing free about being forced into a plan that doesn't work and slowly gets more expensive over time. That's what happens, especially when you're bringing in millions of people who don't pay into the system. That's what they're doing. They lobby for millions of people to come in who are going to get this free health care, but they're getting the money from somewhere. If they were getting it from the Federal Reserve or the big banks or the politicians were going to take trillions of dollars that they're stealing from you and pay for it with that money, I'd be fine. If the Federal Reserve was paying for it, I would say, yeah, it's free. But it's not free because it's literally coming from your taxpayer dollars. So what healthcare is to Bernie Sanders, what free healthcare is and universal, to me is financial enslavement. I've done it for 3 years. Obamacare has scammed $7,000 out of me, and it doesn't actually help me. When I go to the health people, here's what they tell me. They say, don't even run your health insurance. I'm like, why? I'm paying $300 a month for it. They say, well, it's not saving you any money. If you get these stitches on your eye, I had to get it, someone hit me in basketball. They actually said it was cheaper without insurance. So I'm paying $300 a month for a product I literally can't use. And if I opt out of it, they literally steal your money. That's exactly what Obamacare was. And Bernie Sanders would be even worse. Think about it in this way too. If you have a food industry and you say everybody's not getting fed, we need to feed people. Sounds amazing, right? Everyone needs to get fed. Everyone needs healthcare. If your idea for feeding everybody was closing out all competition, closing out everything, giving it over to the government, feeding everybody the same thing and giving everyone same access to the same food, do you think it would create better food? No, it would be a travesty because that's not how you create good stuff. You don't cut out the competition and give it to the government. The government doesn't do a lot of stuff right. I thought people on the left know this. They talk about the wars, I agree with. The government's corrupt, I agree. So why in the world, if the government is so corrupt, like progressives know, and Bernie Sanders knows, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, why would you make the taxpayer and the citizen pay a mandatory fee where you're stealing their money and you're handing it to the federal government to control an entire industry? It doesn't work for veterans. Ask any veteran how government health, like singular universal health care is for Native Americans or for veterans. It doesn't work well because they ruin everything they touch. The government is not the solution. I thought we knew that. I thought it was obvious that the government needs less power, less control. Why in the world would we give the whole health industry? And another reason I can't stand that, now with Bernie Sanders' plan and Obama's CARES plan, I have $6,000 less dollars to spend a year. Me personally, I'm not a complete hippie freakazoid, or like some people would say, but I am kind of a hippie. I'm kind of holistic in many ways. I believe in preventative health. I believe in taking care of yourself so you don't get diseases. I believe there's a way if you exercise, if you free your mind, if you take control of your body, you meditate, you stretch, you pray, you know what I'm saying, play sports, you enjoy your friends, I think you can prevent a lot of illnesses. In fact, I know it. Stress is one of the biggest causers of illness and physical pain. So I believe in taking care of myself. When the government steals my money to force me into a singular unit government system and says, no, we're going to take care of your health. Just give me $6,000 a year and I'm going to give you this plan and we'll take care of your health. That's not what I want to hear. I don't want to hear the government stealing $6,000 from me to take care of my health. I want to be free. Under Bernie Sanders, it is enslavement. Bernie Sanders does not let you free. He is a liar who is going to take your money and give it to the federal government. That's not healthcare to me. Healthcare is having $6,000 so I can go to a sauna, so I can get clean organic food, so I can take care of myself, so I can maybe take a week break, which I haven't had in 7 years. I don't know the last time I've taken like a real vacation. I've taken little breaks here and there, but it's not freedom, it's not justice, it's not health care, it's government health enslavement that if you don't pay, they will come take your money anyway. Obama did it, Bernie Sanders wants to do the same thing. So the singular universal health care is not coming from the universe, it's not free, it is a singular government-controlled health organization that cuts out competition, that makes it impossible for you to go anywhere else to get holistic medicine or take care of yourself or do anything else. It's a total trap, and it's just going to get more and more and more and more and more expensive over time, and then you're trapped into it. You can't opt out. If Trump Care goes bad and it's $10,000 for a health care plan, I don't have to buy it. If I don't buy it, not a single dollar. But if Obamacare blows up and Bernie Sanders blows up, you're in chains. You have to pay that, and it's going to go up and up and up because it's just basic math and economics. Let alone the fact that they now want to, it's bad to kick out illegal immigrants and stuff. Okay, so now you have 63 million people coming here, or 10 million, or 20 million, or 5 million, who are taking out of that system, who get free healthcare, who aren't actually paying into it. That's literally happening. I mean, I come from a family. I worked with, I've worked with illegals. I've worked on a farm. I've done certain things before. I know how the system works, and people buying out of it, but you paying into it, it's just going to go up and up and up and up. It's absolutely insane. So Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are not going to tell you that because it goes against everything they believe, and they care about their agenda more than actual freedom. Like I said, it's free. I'm going to go on to other things, but if I told you, just think about it. If I said, hey guys, I'm going to give you this free service, okay, it's free. But then I said, you need to give me $10,000. If you don't give me your money, I'm going to take it anywhere. I'm going to take 10% of your paycheck. You would not look at me and say, wow, Anomaly's a great guy. He just gave me something for free. You would say, Anomaly's a thief. He's stealing from me. He claimed that it was going to be free, but then he stole money from me. And he said if he didn't steal money, he was going to use, he was going to take it anyway. That's not freedom. Every one of their free policies is literally not free, which is okay if they told you that, but it's literally going to come from your money. So anybody that does that, I don't care if they're left wing or right wing, if they tell me it's free and then they're stealing my money, they're not a freedom fighter, they're a thief in disguise. The authoritarian left is a huge threat in Europe, in Germany, UK, other places in Sweden and others. You don't have free speech. If you don't have free speech, if you can't speak your mind, if you can't speak truth to power, you are nothing more than a glorified slave with a smartphone. It's what they are in many parts of Europe. They're not free to speak their mind. If they speak truth to power, they risk the threat of being arrested. You're not free. The authoritarian left wing, and it's coming from, you could say it's coming from Islam, and you could say that's right-wing Islam or whatever label you want to put on it, in Pakistan and, in parts of Turkey and in Saudi Arabia, obviously, like, you're not free to speak your mind against power. In Europe, that's the left wing. It's the socialist, communist ideology, liberal, neoliberal, whatever you want to call it. It's the authoritarian left. It's now spread to Google. It's now spread to Apple. They're openly Twitter. People know progressives, whether it's Kyle Kalinske, Jimmy Dore, Free Thought Project. Who's shutting down your pages? Is it conservative? Is Trump shutting down your pages? No, because Trump's not an authoritarian. Trump is right-wing. He believes in less regulation and lower taxes and more personal freedom. He might talk a little trash or ban Jim Acosta for touching a White House aide's hand for a day or two, but he's not an authoritarian. The left wing is the biggest threat to progressive voices. They know this. I mean, you could ask someone like Jimmy Dore. I think they know who's trying to shut his channel down. It's YouTube, Twitter. It's the authoritarian left, and it's all over Europe now. And what happens when the authoritarian left gets power, but now you don't have any money? You're giving all your money to these faulty ideologies of if you give your tax to the government, you'll somehow get something in return. Why do you think they're burning stuff in France? It's because their gas is $7, $8, and instead of making the prices lower, the government just keeps taking more and more money and adding more taxes. This is left-wing ideology. You tax and you tax and you tax and you tax. It doesn't go down. You don't get more money. It doesn't work long-term. It might have worked 10 years or 20 years in Belgium or Sweden or Canada, but you're going to see over the next 10 years, it doesn't work for 30 years. It doesn't work for 40 years. It never works for 50 years. It never has. It has a 0% success rate because stealing freedom and money from people, giving it to the highest oligarchs and to the government, and then wondering why your free speech is leaving in Europe, it's because they're following far-left policies. And everywhere those policies follow, you see authoritarian speech controllers. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that it's all coming from the left. And what I don't like about Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are they're trying to push similar policies and ideologies, but they don't say a single thing about this. Why do they not say a single thing? Why do they not stand up for progressive voices who are getting silenced? It's because they don't care. They prioritize stealing your money and taking your taxpayer dollars and forcing you into these agreements that steal your money, they're more concerned about that than they are free speech. They're not worried about it because it's not a big deal to them. And it's happening in Europe. It's coming to the United States, and it seems to be only the right wing and a select few progressives who are speaking out against it. Everyone else is going to get swallowed alive by that if they don't wake up. I want to go on to climate change. Okay, so the environment is a big thing for me. I've been in the environment my whole life. We need to clean the air, clean the water. I think we're trashing the oceans. I think we're disrespecting Earth. I think we have clean technology, and I think we have the technology to use solar energy, to use wind. And although wind does kill a lot of birds and stuff, you have to understand, and like things like Tesla, you have to be real. I love Elon Musk. I love electric cars. But if you're actually using more power and more gas to fuel the creation of it than you are the actual output, you have to take that into consideration if you're a real environmentalist. Is it really helping or not? But I'm all about the environment. But here's the thing with left-wing politicians like Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and the establishment neoliberal left who pushes the climate change agenda as well. What's their solution for it? I believe that the environment is getting trashed. I want to see someone who can invent something. People are doing it at Ivy League colleges. There's people in India planting trees. Invent something that's so amazing, so great, that everybody wants to buy it. Apple did that. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have to close out the competition and steal your money to do it. They just created something that everyone wanted and everyone realized was better, and then it, took charge. So what they did in France, they say climate change is happening, and then, just like progressives and socialists and democratic socialists always do, they steal your money. So they say the climate's changing. Here, let me take your money. How is that going to stop the climate from changing? When India's polluting, when China's polluting, when parts of Europe and US are polluting, how is stealing my money going to save the environment? Spoiler alert, it's not going to change the environment a degree. It's a power grab for them to steal more money and control from the people in the name of environment. And on that note, climate change and science, you have to understand, whether you believe in it or not, whether you agree with the science or not, you have to understand the science of something this complex changes every year. You have to understand this year they found an active volcano under an ice glacier. So that changes the science understanding. Why is this ice glacier melting? Well, I'm not speaking for all of them, but this particular ice glacier is melting because there's an active volcano spewing hot lava under it. So that's going to, change the scientific understanding of that ice glacier. Let's talk about the universe. We don't understand it. When I was growing up, they said that there's 0 planets like Earth. That was the science. That all the best physicists and astronomers and scientists who studied space told me that there were 0 planets like Earth. Now they come to find that there are millions upon billions of planets that are just like Earth. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. They call it the Goldilocks zone. There's billions. So the science changed in 12 years. The science changed from 0 to 1 billion. The science changed from where did humans start? When did civilization start? The science has changed by like thousands upon tens of thousands of years. They found bones in Morocco that totally changed the course of how they believed humans, where they came from and how they started. So the science of the past, the science of humanity, it changes by like millions every single year because we don't really understand what's going on. We don't understand the universe. We don't understand the planet. 95% of the deep ocean is unexplored. More than half of the Earth, I believe 60 to 70%, is water. So if you do the math, that means that over half of Earth is unexplored. We don't know what's going on in space, and we know very little about what's going on in this planet. You have volcanoes, you have glaciers, you have oceans that are beyond human control. Can you stop the ocean? No. Can you manipulate it? I'm sure you can. Can you change the weather a little bit? Absolutely. Do we have an effect on the Earth? 1,000%. Of course we have an effect on the Earth, and we're doing a bad job. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. We could be doing better. We could be doing worse, but I believe that our environmentalism is pretty weak right now. I agree with progressives, but what I don't agree with is the science is not settled. The science is never settled. That's not real. That's not a true thing. With something that's so undiscovered, you don't understand. You could say that the science of life is that you need water and air to survive, but then they found a little microscopic organism that was like feeding off of arsenic. They found it 3 years ago. It changed science forever. Oh, I had no idea that things didn't have to, live like we do to survive in the universe. Science changes all the time. So why am I saying this? Why am I bringing up this discussion? Because what do you think it does when Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Macron, Merkel, and all these leftists from authoritarian establishment left to progressive left-wing woke people? They say two things. They say the science is settled, you can't talk about it, and on YouTube now, when I talk about this stuff, they put a little Wikipedia article, so they won't just let people talk, and they won't let people listen to me. They want to tell you what to believe. It's not debatable. The science is settled. You can't talk about it. And then they take your money on top of that. So do I think the climate's changing? Yeah, winter, summer, the climate changes all the time. Do I think we're having a bad influence on it? Probably. We got, what, 7, 8 billion people on this planet, and we're growing and growing and growing and not getting smarter, we're getting stupider. Yeah, of course we're having a negative effect on the environment. But is the solution a global carbon tax and silencing any dissenters or people that are trying to have a discussion about it? Of course not. That's a psychopathic discussion, but that's what Bernie Sanders wants to do. That's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants to do. That's what progressives want to do. They say the science is settled. All our scientists agree on it. You're a fool if you disagree. Let's tax you more. What? How is that going to change the climate? How is that going to change the trajectory of the planet? It's not. They're going to steal your money, gain more control over you, and take your free speech away. That's all they're trying to do with climate change. 97 scientists agree. Well, let's talk to 97 scientists in 1930. Let's see 97% of what scientists believed in 1930. Let's compare it to what we consider scientists today. I guarantee you 97% of scientists in 1930 were wrong about virtually everything, because every 10 years a genius comes along and he changes science forever. From the Einsteins to the health experts that literally create cures and change our understanding of everything. Nothing is the same in science. I mean, some things like the speed and trajectory of light and these things we understand, you know, physics and like, okay, well, that's how an airplane goes. We got to build it like this, and the wind speed and the engine speed, like that's science I believe in. That's physics I believe in. Is the Earth's climate changing settled science? Absolutely not. It is the biggest lie on the left that they can't come to grips with and fathom, and their idea of saving the environment, as literally Trump talked about it today. He said, because in Paris and France, they're revolting against the carbon tax, and Trump was saying, I want to clean the air, I want to clean the water, but the way to do it is not to steal money from citizens and then ignore the fact that China and India, the biggest polluters, aren't doing anything about it. So climate change, whether it's going on or not, stealing my money and stopping me from having a conversation about it and you know, toxifying my conversation with all your like little pop-ups because you can't even let people listen to me, that is not the solution to saving the environment. That is the solution to an authoritarian global rule where the people have no power and no free speech and the oppressors have everything. So the progressives are doing climate change wrong. If you notice, I'm going to talk about a few more things and move on. If you notice, everybody from Bernie Sanders to Ocasio-Cortez to Jimmy Dore to Kyle Kulinski, people that I genuinely like. I think they have a lot of truth to them. You know, I like some of the stuff that Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kulinski do. They're like the biggest progressives on YouTube. But if you notice, and once you see it, you can't unsee it, they're filled with telling you the truth. They'll tell you the truth about neoliberals. They'll tell you the truth about war. They'll tell you the truth about poverty. They'll tell you the truth about corruption. And then they feed you one of the 3 lies that I pretty much just debunked. They'll say, oh, this is happening. And you're like, yeah, that's true. And then they say, so we need universal health care. And you're like, wait, just because that's happening doesn't mean we need a singular government enslavement health care plan that stops me from taking care of my own health and steals thousands of dollars from me. But they're one-trick ponies. That's all Bernie Sanders does. If you notice, he never talked out about the DNC. He never talked out about being cheated. He never talked out about his supporters being silenced. He never talked out about anything. Bernie Sanders, and I had an eye on him when I enjoyed him and I liked him. I was like, why is he doing that? Is it like strategic or is he fake? And now I figured out he's kind of fake, but he's a pull string doll. Poverty exists, universal health care, $15 an hour minimum wage, universal health care. That's all Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kulinski do. They say all this bad stuff happening. I'm like, yes, I agree with the first half of the video. I'm like, that's so real. Kyle Kulinski's so real, Jimmy Dore's so real. And then they say, that's why we need a singular government health care plan that'll save everyone's lives. And like all their followers are like, yeah. No, they feed you half-truths, and then they sucker you into their false ideology of total government control and your taxpayer dollars being put into the hands of the federal government that they themselves know is corrupt. That's all they do. Now when you go and watch their channels, see if they do that. They're all about truth, 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 universal health care. This is real, this is real, this is real, I agree. let's give our money in tax to the federal government. That's like literally every single post that they do is just like that, because that's all they have. They don't want to use common sense and logic and rationality and like really think about personal liberties and freedom. They just throw you into their agenda with every single thing that they push. And I don't agree with that. That's why I say to people, change yourself to change the world. That's one thing I know that's outside of government that people can control. You can't control what the government does sometimes. You can't control what the media does sometimes. But I know what I can control and what changed my life outside of politics and policies is taking control of my mind, taking control of my spirit, taking control of my soul, and using that to better myself and work harder and work smarter and being persistent and passionate. That's the overarching message I share. I don't try to tell you to put your money into the hands of the big government. That's insane. But that's what all progressives do, because they lack a lot of the self-accountability and self-responsibility and common sense. They lack that. So whenever you have a void in your personal self, you want to fill it with something. And they choose to fill it with the big government. They say, that's not happening, so let's let big government do that, and they'll take care of the health industry. They will destroy the health industry unlike anything you've seen. I don't like the health industry now. You think it's bad now? Wait until progressives win an election and bring in universal government-controlled healthcare, and then you'll see really how bad it is, and you won't have money and probably won't have the freedom of speech to speak out against it. It's total authoritarianism. The refugee crisis and weak on crime. So just to give you a background, like I said, I'm not saying this to like be a shill or anything. Like literally, I supported this guy. I thought this guy was the real deal. What I've noticed over the last few years, really the last year, because I came from a totally different angle. I used to be, I still am, like I'm anti-prison industrial complex. I think people are getting locked up for false reasons. I think that nonviolent drug offenders who are smoking weed probably shouldn't serve time like a heroin addict who murdered somebody. That's just my thought. I'm like, why are all these people going to jail? But what I realized with the progressive left and the establishment left, from like liberal to progressive, is they're super, super weak and super, super naive. I'm not talking about kind and compassionate. Like I'm all for kind, but like I always use the security guard analogy. Like I'm kind, but if I run a business, if I run a country, I want to put a security guard there who will make sure that no crime happens, no bad people get in, no people get in with guns or something. I want a good security guard. I wouldn't put a progressive or a liberal because they don't have that like strength to them. They kind of just flop with everything. Like, yes, the prison system's messed up. Yes, police are corrupt, but like that doesn't mean to turn a blind eye to the fact that there are people committing crimes, or like the border or the refugee situation. Like, yes, I want to help refugees. Yes, I want to help illegal immigrants. But no, I don't want to let 20,000 people in on a caravan where half of them are sick and some of them have tuberculosis. I don't want to let in 500,000 people from Libya and Syria when I know that reports coming from my sources in Syria tell me that up to 25% of these people that are now in Germany and Sweden and France and Europe are ISIS members, and they want to tank Western civilization. If you go to some of these countries, the hate for America is very real. Even Louis Farrakhan will tell you that. He's not even hiding that fact. Tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people hate the Western world. They hate America. They hate Europe. They hate the freedom that women have. They hate everything that liberalism and progressivism stands for. They hate it. They're even more conservative than Christians. They want to conserve their religious ideology. And to me, they have every right to do that in their own countries. But I don't want to bring that to the United States. Why? Because I'm a real liberal. I'm a real progressive. I want progress for women. I don't want to regress into something that's even more conservative than the most conservative Christian in the 1900s, which is radical Islam in many of these countries. But you don't hear that from progressives. They don't have a spine. They have sold their souls to identity politics. They don't want to seem racist. They don't want to seem sexist. They don't want to seem xenophobic, which is fine because I'm not racist, sexist, or xenophobic, and I don't want to seem it. But that's why I don't, because I'm not a coward. I know that I can be kind and compassionate and loving without letting down 300 million people in America and ruining my own country for the sake of not seeming mean to your cult-like ideology who can't handle, any sort of criticism. They don't talk about this stuff. They don't talk about what's going on in Mexico and Honduras. They might talk about the wars and the intervention, which is great. People need to talk about that everywhere. But what's the solution? Is the solution to bring in millions of people unvetted and don't really question it and say you're racist and sexist. If you do question it and then try to stop people from explaining that it's literally not working in Europe, the high taxes and the refugee crisis is a crisis. They even have a Wikipedia page. It's tanked Germany. It's not terrible or anything, but I'm telling you, watch over the next couple of years, like France setting itself on fire. I've been talking about France for a year or two.